You'll never win, Batman. Oh, hi, hello, sorry. Are we filming this today? I didn't realize. No, that's cool, we can do it now. So the Suicide Squad movie isn't too far away, and there's lots of rumours floating around that Scott Eastwood will actually be playing Slade Wilson in the film, and it will give us a history of how he becomes Deathstroke, or at least one version of how he becomes Deathstroke. Because you see, lots of different versions of Deathstroke have popped up through different media throughout the years, and in this video I want to talk about them. Now I don't really want to go too much into the history of Deathstroke. Other people have already done that better than me. Here's a sweet video by Variant Comics. There's a link to that in the description as well. Pretty much in this video, I want to do two things. One, talk about the visual differences in the different versions of Deathstroke, and two, sweat a lot, because this armor is hot as hell. So the first version I want to talk about is the first version we ever saw, the classic Deathstroke that first appeared in Teen Titans #2 and then eventually in his own titles and other titles. Now this guy is rocking some orange briefs over what is some pretty body-hugging armor. Also, it's worth noting that at this point his mask is more of a ski mask than a helmet. That's something that kind of fluctuates through all the versions. Also, depending on the specific artwork or issue that you're looking at, his color scheme kind of slowly fades between blues and grays, and that's something that happens a lot in different versions as well. And of course, under the mask, he's got some luscious grey hair, a grey goatee, and an eye patch because his wife shot him in the head and he lost his eye. Okay, now I'm going to jump straight ahead to the new 52 Deathstrokes, and I used plural there because his design has changed a bunch of times in recent comic years. So this is how we see him on the cover of issue 0. Inside that very same issue, we see kind of an alternate version of his mask that's completely orange, because in this version he didn't lose his eye until he fought some North Koreans who killed his family. From then on, his costume becomes much more bulky. He gets these huge shoulder pauldrons, his mask is more of a solid helmet, and he starts to predominantly use medieval looking swords. Also, it's worth talking about that in a pretty recent Deathstroke run, his mind actually got put into the body of a much younger man with dark short hair and both working eyes. Now if I can relate that back to the Scott Eastwood thing, I mean, they kind of look alike. A lot of people are kind of unhappy about Scott Eastwood being Deathstroke because he seems to be too young to fit properly into the DC cinematic universe. We already know they've got magic in the universe, so maybe this explains it, maybe? Anyway, it's also around this time that Deathstroke is sometimes drawn wearing a shamar, I don't know how to say it properly. Basically, this neck scarf thing that I'm rocking here. And speaking of a neck scarf, that brings me to the next version of Deathstroke I want to talk about, the version from the TV show Arrow. Now this show does attempt a more realistic approach to these characters, which does kind of explain his more tactical looking suit. But in the show he also has a different backstory that kind of also helps to explain it. Arrow's version of Slade Wilson was originally kind of a good guy, but he's given Mirakuru a super soldier formula, which kind of turns him insane, as well as giving him strength and agility and whatnot. But his healing factor isn't really emphasized as much in the show as it is in the comics. That, combined with the fact that the show's trying to look a little bit more realistic, kind of explains his more tactical, bulky armor. Also, his hair and his goatee are still pretty dark, and we never see any parts where he's dyeing it, so it's pretty fair to say that this version of Slade is younger than other versions that we've seen. Speaking of hair, let's look at the version of Deathstroke from the animated TV show Young Justice. Now this guy does have the grey wolf look going on, but instead of a crew cut and a goatee, he's got a beard and a huge ponytail. Now I like Young Justice, but the ponytail doesn't really suit the character of a straight talking, emotionless mercenary to me. I mean, it'd be like if in real life the leader of the military came out to a press conference and he had a huge ponytail. Like, it's not illegal, but it just feels wrong. Anyway, this version's suit is mostly black and grey with a lot less orange than we've seen in other versions. It's also a lot less bulky. Now that's not to be confused with the Teen Titans animated version, which really stripped down the colour and kind of emphasised the armour by making it this really bright grey. Now let's move on to video games. The Deathstroke from Injustice Gods Among Us is very similar looking to the new 52 Deathstroke, seen here on the cover of issue 1. They have the same spikes on their gauntlets and boots, but to be fair, in Injustice Gods Among Us, you can get skins for like every version of Deathstroke, so I don't even know why I mentioned that. Probably shouldn't have. Now let's move on to the Arkham series of games and their version of Deathstroke, probably my favourite. Now this mother effer goes full tactical armour. There's lots of orange on the suit, and instead of having some grey parts and some blue parts, they go for kind of a blue tinted gunmetal colour for the whole thing. Also, the Slade that we see under the mask is pretty much just your classic Slade. No ponytails or black hair with this guy. Now let's not forget there's also been some freaking horrible Slade Wilsons. In the TV show Smallville, Slade Wilson was an army general who had no hair and never even became Deathstroke. And in the TV show Lois and Clark, Deathstroke was a scientist who got magnet powers. What? Oh yeah, I almost forgot the best version of Deathstroke in the world. This version right here. Cough self-promotion. That's the best one. No, just kidding. That's my costume. Now with my costume, I'm actually making a real suit of armor so I can actually get beat up in it. Also, if you want to see a video of me trying to do parkour in it, there's a link right there. I'll link that at the end of the video too. So what's your favorite version of Deathstroke? Or what's your favorite piece of Deathstroke armor that's sometimes included in different versions and sometimes not? Also, I'm going to do a competition where you can win this guy. You can read about that in the description. That's the end of the video. Time to Deathstroke it by finishing it. Trying to stroke the video and give it a death by ending it. Sorry.